Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here, and especially thank you, Representative Janeen Sollman, for joining us here today. Really appreciate, because I know you're busy, tons of stuff going on with the state, and then also, just work, job, and, trying to live the dream, as you said. Yeah. Juggling it all. Excellent. Well, I'm just going to turn it over to you, and hopefully we'll have an opportunity. I know you're really great at asking for questions. And do you want to just present and have folks then ask questions at the end, or do you want questions along the way?
Whatever people, I mean, I can keep an eye. I'll open up the chat, and I'll keep an eye on that, and so will the team that's on here. So, yeah.
Perfect.
Just that way, if somebody has something, feel free to interject. It's totally fine. This isn't a formal presentation or anything, conversation. So, but I thank you for this opportunity. It is a fabulous opportunity to hear some perspective that I'm not necessarily not within my wheelhouse, so it's incredibly important. It is, I serve on I'm sorry, I feel so tongue twisted this morning. Maybe I should have a cup of tea here. I served my second term as a legislator, and incredibly honored to be in this position. This is trying times, so I still do consider myself very much a community connector in trying to help people, connect them to the resources that they may need. I may not have the answers, but really am excited about having the team that I do that helps me in this work, and Nicole Vargas, who's on this call as well, and she's going to be helping with anytime we have a link or anything that we can provide information in the chat, that she will do so. Nicole serves, lives in the district and also serves on the Hillsboro Park and Rec board, and it's fabulous to have her here, and she is a wealth of information with all of this work going on. And then I have my newest team member, which is Mark Watson. Mark is also on the call, and going to be, it is exciting because Mark brings his aspect as a small business owner, as well as being a school board, on the school board in Hillsboro. So having that education side of experience too. So I feel like I have an incredible roster, and I am fortunate. I serve on the Education Committee, and I serve as the Vice Chair of the Energy and Environment Committee. I serve as a commissioner with the Alcohol Drug Policy, as well as the Autism Disorder Commission. I serve as a STEM Fellow for Oregon, and what that means is that I get connected with STEM education, STEM experiences that are happening across the United States to see, and partnering with what's happening in Oregon to try to see how we can elevate STEM education in Oregon. And that's because it is the line of work that I do at Vernier Software, because I do have another job as well. And so I'm really fortunate. I have am excited to be here to find out what questions folks have, to hopefully provide some good resources. Not being a small business owner myself, excited to be included on a 21-member bipartisan group. We were trying to kind of figure out our branding and whatnot. So we have we're talking about our groups called Oregon Works, because it's all about making sure that we're supporting small businesses through this COVID crisis. It's been a very interesting, like I said, it's a bipartisan group of representatives. And the work that we have done so far is collectively, we've had two meetings, I believe, and I think we have 2 more coming up. But some of the things that we have done through our discussion is really encouraged and wrote a letter collectively to the governor and spoken to the governor's team about specifically around CAT tax and CAT tax payments, and making sure that businesses would not suffer any penalties if they needed to stretch their payments out or delay their payments. That is something that the governor has said, She recently sent a letter to Sandy McDonough from OBI and confirming that that was something that she was willing to support, as well as some other changes, some other means of supporting our businesses through this. So that was something that we did as a group collectively to try to influence. I think right now we are working on the unemployment insurance, delaying the tax payments for payments for businesses. We're trying to see, normally it's like a bulk payment that is paid. We're trying to see if we can smooth that out for businesses to provide some relief. We're looking and finding out if that's something that we can do through the governor's executive order, or if that's something that has to be done legislatively and whatnot. We're talking with different agencies, and that's the exciting thing about this group, is that we have had agencies come and be part of this conversation. We brainstorm together. Yesterday we had Business Oregon on the call because we were talking about the small business stabilization funds that are coming through the e-board and what that looks like. And so I think that it is exciting to be part of that group, because I may bring a different lens of experience on the education side of things and my connection with the chamber and with many local businesses. And I bring those ideas back to that group. And then we can talk about it and kind of sort things out and see where we can collectively take our take action to support businesses during these trying times. One of the other thing that we're looking at, or that they talked about yesterday in this in our Oregon Works group, was about work share changes. That's an exciting program that is allowing companies to make full of someone's paycheck. There's a really great website of information that you can go to for the work share that Nicole will probably be sharing on here as well. If you're not familiar. Currently we have to have 3 or less, at least 3 employees, where we're trying to match up with the federal requirements, which is at 2. So perhaps that we can make that change and match up with the federal side of things. Also looking at different percentages to be able to increase the amount that work share can fill the gap of employee checks. So that is all in the works, and that was stuff that we talked about in our meeting yesterday. I don't know if you want me, Deanna, just to, oh, see, Nicole has shared that website. And I don't know, Nicole, Deanna, do you want me just to keep rolling on eBoard? Because, you know.
That would be great. And I think specifically around the small business support in terms of, I think they talked about 10 million, what that might look like, how that might go out to different parts of the state. Yeah, I take a lot of notes when I have phone calls, and when I watch the e-board, the hearing, the committee meeting going on, I took lots of notes in regards to the board action for the small business, for the dollars. I wanted to say that one of the things that we looked at was, and I apologize, let me find this page. Awkward, I should have marked it. Okay, so one of the, I should say that the reason our e-board had to take action is because we have a set amount of dollars that we have in emergency funding that can be used for different aspects of government without us being called into session. Currently, the governor has not indicated her interest in calling for a special session during this time for a couple of reasons. Number one is we want to see where the federal dollars come in so that we can be
more efficient and more effective with the dollars that we have at the state level to lift those and to kind of fill in gaps where needed. And so we are kind of waiting to see how much, how that is coming through. And the other one is waiting for economic forecast, which is May 20th. And when that will be coming in May, we'll be able to have a better idea of what we're looking at looking forward. And some of our state economists have, of course, shared, we generally are pretty conservative in those figures and the things that we're working on as far as with our the economic forecast, the board. And they are really painting a picture of some 2 years ahead in looking at, especially we're going to feel it this year, and then start to, oh, lovely birds, somebody's outside. So we are going to hopefully then be able to see some turn in this year at the, as the year progresses. I was concerned because wearing that former school board hat, since 2008 when we were on that board, we cut $68 million from our school board, and we were very slow to come out of that recession. And I did point out in a phone call with the state economists, like, is that what we're talking about? Or we should be very concerned with not only our school budgets, but our state economy in whole. They said this one looks different. It was very different from the last recession, and very much property tax, real estate driven. And they feel that this is more a consumer driven type of recession that we should be able to pick back up very quickly, or quicker than we have in the past. I also would say that with the e-board action, we do have the other option. I said the governor has the ability to call us in for a special session. We can call ourselves in, but we do have to have a majority from both chambers that agree upon that. And so we are going to, obviously we're going to wait for that May forecast and see where things are falling in that aspect, and see how we can see our plan moving forward for that. So the e-board dollars, the $10 million, I think Greg Smith, he is the legislator from Eastern Oregon, Central Oregon, and he stated it well. He feels that, that $10 million and bringing business relief, while it is the important thing for us to do in doing what we can for our small businesses, specifically looking at those that are under 25 employees, it does bring a sense of a little bit of false feeling of false net security, because $10 million is going to go very quickly across the state. Generously, the city of Hillsboro has given $1 million towards Hillsboro businesses. And Steve, was it like in the first run, was it like in 2.5 hours, wasn't it?
It was just in a few hours, and well over $1 million was requested. And so that's why we then reallocated and put another $500,000 in for phase 2.
And I want to look at, I'm going to try to see if I can find my email here, because there's an email that, just to give you an example, and I hope I don't lose you in any way. You probably can still see me, but I can't see you. There is an email that came through from the speaker's office that really talked about the small business, really talked about the fact that Hillsboro really generated a lot of the work that came through from the e-board, from the small business stabilization, that much of what they did in communication with the speaker's office and communication with us really drove how we were going to put this out there for folks. When you look at the different cities, Beaverton has dedicated $250,000. Gresham has developed offering one-time grants in the amount of $1,000 per employee with a maximum of 10,000 per business, and dedicated originally 400,000. They followed up with an additional 400,000. Lake Oswego is 250,000. Portland, I think really it's interesting to me, it's Hillsboro, Seaside, and Portland have really stepped up in being able to provide those local businesses with that support. And Lindsay really wanted to make sure that when I spoke with her yesterday, that she really wanted to really send praise as far as the communication level that Hillsboro has provided in working through this. The small
Can I just add in the Washington County also did $1 million, I think $1.2 million, and their grant ran for and it's a grant and / loan. It ran for 2 days, and I believe that they received 2,200 applications, and will, with that $1.2 million, be able to help and support about 250 businesses. So I agree with, I think you said his name was Greg Smith, in terms of $10 million is almost just symbolic in terms of statewide support for small business. Yeah, and I know you know this, but we hear from so many small businesses when they apply for these grants and they don't get in. And it just is it kind of knocks them back again. So I'm just hopeful that at some point in time, we can lift up the couch cushions and find a few more bucks under the couch cushion for our small businesses on a statewide basis, because I know there's a lot of communities that are not going to be able to to help support anyway from their own local general funds.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say that I hope those there are dollars within those couch cushions of our state budget. We just do not have access to them without being in a special session. And so we have such limited resources with the emergency funds that we have to be able to provide support right now. So that was divided between, they did some housing, some healthcare, business. And so I totally agree with you. I do think that some amazing resources have been out there. So not only by the city and the county that have provided that support, but also the business Oregon site itself. They have a small business navigator, and again, we'll put the website and a hotline number up here in the comments, because that is available to anyone. And the support and the folks that they have to be able to reach, to be able to have someone to talk with, to talk about your scenario and your situation, and they can help pinpoint you to some resources that you can use specific to your business needs. I want to say that I always believe in the work smarter, not harder motto. And this document that Deanna is sharing right now was not the brainchild of Janeen Sollman. It really came from Akasha Laura Spence. She is a representative from the Portland area. And we were talking because, again, I want to make sure that I'm reaching out to people that have this experience and have these conversations, and it is their wheelhouse in talking about small business support. So I have reached out to Akasha, to David Gomberg, to Janelle Bynum, to Brian Clem, to make sure that I can have and get the resources that they know that they can help me connect people to. So Akasha, her staff came up with this document, and this is a living document, so that as we see changes made, we would add that information in here. It has things that I'm trying to forward, and I'm like, wait a minute, I don't have control of it. So, but you'll be able to see, if we had grants available, we would be able to pinpoint that in there. But Hillsboro's was gone so quickly, Washington County's was open so short, but we did put local resources down in this document so that people can make sure that they're connecting to the city of Hillsboro or to the chamber or to Washington County. It has work share information in there. The PPP, oh, did somebody have something? Oh, so the PPP that is coming through the Paycheck Protection Program, more dollars are coming through on the federal side. That is open now. They anticipate it will not last long. So we encourage folks, if you have that opportunity, to go on to the site. That is a federal program to access dollars. They have taken a different kind of formula to this to make sure that it's not just focusing on businesses that are 500 or less, small business, so that they are truly looking at narrowing that to the 25 or less model, which is something that we looked at for the e-board, for the Small Business Stabilization Fund that we were able to put in, that we were able to also adopt, and making sure that we're looking at 25 or under. But we also know that many of these businesses they're self-employed. They may have 1 to 2 to 3 employees. So in making sure that we're trying to connect people to resources in there, the pandemic unemployment assistance, the money that came through on the federal side, that is said to be, the system is said to be complete this week. Now, this is a new system to Oregon, so we've had to take our antiquated computer system that we already have and create this new system within there to accept people who are self-employed and gig economy workers, independent contractors. And so they hope to have that information available at the end of this week. It's kind of some mixed information that we're receiving. Some people say, wait until it comes online to apply. Then we've heard from others that have not within the agency that have said, no, you should apply, at least get your information in and you'll be in the queue. I do know that one of the things that they are looking at and telling people to have ready for information is your 2019 net dollars, your net income. So if you've done your taxes, to be able to have that information readily accessible for you for when you're filling out this information. Again, the website is on there for people to take a look at and follow through. There's also, I think, probably what has come through our email box. Specifically, Nicole and I have experienced a lot of folks working through the frustrations of the unemployment and of the Department of Employment, the Employment Department, Oregon Department of anyway. They're frustrated, and rightfully so. They have taken on so many claims in the last 5-6 weeks. Their system is absolutely inundated. That they have hired on more people. They have added some websites that people can go to, some really slick different areas where people can just really follow through and follow their claim. So they're really trying to put some of those tools in the toolbox. It's just taking the time that while the crisis is happening, that they're creating the system. And it is something that I know that Deanna, you and I have talked about since probably back in early March about this frustration of, are they going to be able to handle it? What's going to happen to the system? So I think they are hoping to have those funds available for the self-employed and for the gig workers, have that. And the good news about that is that it will be retroactive back to February 2nd. So I think that is, going to be beneficial for folks. I just had someone contact me this morning.
And I know that I think that Governor Brown tweeted out something on Sunday apologizing, acknowledging that it hasn't been, what everyone had hoped to. And I do think that, when you have a system that's built on, is it Cobalt? Which, I think when I was a teenager, it was the thing. So do the math. That was a long time ago. And so I think they brought in engineers, retired engineers that utilize Cobalt to help, sort of put on the baling string and chewing gum, and I think to get it through and, add on some of those things. But I do know it's enormously frustrating for folks that, maybe they have lost their job, and maybe their spouse still has a job. That's a better position to be in than if you're a single mom, lost your job, don't get child support, and there you are.
Yep.
And really an inability to save as well. So you have no savings to rely upon. So I appreciate the fact that you have amplified this to such a degree that we're getting some stuff moved through the system quickly.
Yeah, it's really, it's absolutely scary. I've been in touch with this gal who, boy, she really sounded like she was just on a real thin string, right? And I reached out to her and talked to her. She no longer had a place to live. Her employer was kind enough, who had shut down their business for this time, allowing her to stay there so that she had a roof over her head. She was waiting for her unemployment check, had $100 left in her account. And, that's the scary reality of this, is that people, some people have a little bit of a savings or a safety net. Some people have family members that are able to help them. Other people may not have anyone. And so what felt good to me was to be able to connect her with food services, giving her the resources to 211, making sure that she had the numbers for the crisis line that was 24/7 for Washington County, making sure that we're checking in on her. And also we've connected her with somebody from unemployment that is working through her claim with her. And that's just the hard reality of when the numbers are so great that they just are trying to work through the system. And so when we have this ability to connect people who are in real serious dire straits and get them assistance, that's a really, it feels good to be able to help them in that way, but people are definitely hurting right now. And I think that some of the actions that the governor was able to take through executive order on commercial moratoriums for rent, for residential, in making sure that all those things were put into place so that they could provide a bit of a safety net for folks, that if their business was shut down or severely impacted by COVID-19, then they can provide some rental assistance for them, some working out with their landlord, so that they're not have that burden over their head as well. Again, without being in session and without having access to those dollars and access to statutory changes and such, we have so many tools in the toolbox. And I think the governor is looking at as many tools as she can possibly use to help people and connect people, get dollars amplified from the federal side to match them with local, whether we're talking about Oregon Food Bank dollars and increasing, or getting dollars to Meals on Wheels programs. It's limited tools, but we're doing what we can to try to match and lift those dollars. Did you want me to, I do also want to mention tonight, we are having a joint town hall with Senator Riley and Representative Susan McLean. Hi, Pete. I saw Pete. And I wanted to make sure that folks, if they have, they want to get involved in that, we can put the email down, actually, or just contact us, because we can see if we can get a spot, because there was, as of last night, about 20 spots that were remaining. But we are going to have the governor, the deputy legislative director from the governor's office come and talk about the governor's reopen plan. And we are going to record that. So if you cannot participate, please make sure you send my office an email, and we can make sure to get that to you so that you can watch if you cannot participate. The other, make sure you send an email. I think we'll put the email down there for my office if you wanted to get on our newsletter. We put out about 2 newsletters a week in information, trying to, in a broad amount of information. I think yesterday's was talked about insurance payments and different things, and the drive-through testing that's coming through with Walgreens partnership. So that's going to be tonight. So we'd love to have you 6:30 to 8 p.m. And yeah, and then I probably have more in there, but I just wanted to check in to see if there's any questions.
So at this point, as I like to say, I'm going to give you a little warning. I'm going to unmute you all. So if you're doing something you don't want us to hear, stop doing it.
Hi, Jeremy. I sent you an email. Email me.
All right, if you have a question, I think now is the time, folks. I would just ask that you introduce yourself to the representative and ask your question. And again, if you have background noise, just go ahead and put yourself back in mute. And
well, and I do want to say too that I'm going to try to work through as many questions as I can, but this is also, and you have my deep commitment that if I cannot provide you an answer at this time, we have Nicole and Mark that are busily taking notes and contact information so that we can make sure to get you the answer that you will need. So you have my pinky promise on that.
So I'll start it out just to break the ice, so to speak. I think I saw something in the e-board relief plan that had something to do with communities of color and potentially folks that might not have a regular channel or be able to access some of the traditional types of relief methods, whether it's unemployment or federal. Did I see that right?
You did. And that was the one point of the e-board action that the committee took that actually had didn't have a unanimous vote. And I can hopefully take a look here at, so it's what it is going to be is it's $10 million that will be grant funding that will be put through that the community foundation, the Oregon Community Foundation will facilitate, and then they'll work with the community-based programs. They're looking to make sure that they have an easy online application. They did say that some of the stipulations had to be must work in Oregon, must have a job during the time that they were released. Their job was in Oregon, and they have no access to unemployment insurance anywhere else. So the max benefit given would be $590 a week. Again, when you're doing the math for that, these funds will most likely go very quickly. There was some conversation from one of the senators as like, as more people find out that there's this money, do you think more people will move here because of that benefit? And first of all, some of the comments were made, it's not going to last that long. It's not that great of a pot of money that somebody's going to be like, I'm moving from South Dakota to come over there because this benefit is there. And two, they're the stipulations is that you must work in Oregon. Your job had to be already in place in Oregon when this happened. So I think there are some sideboards that they tried to look at to make sure. And there was some conversation in the e-board about the administrative costs. And they kind of had to put a figure on that. And they would said, oh, it's going to cost $1 million for administrative costs, which they are actually working to fundraise that right now. And they've raised over 500,000 or not, I think $500,000, I think they said. Yeah, and they did $500,000. And then they, towards those administrative costs so that they can get more dollars out to people. There were some concerns about securing the data that was going to be provided on this online application. There was some concerns about that, and they are looking to make sure that is a factor. Farm Bureau, from what I understand, was on board and on support of this. A lot of these folks are folks that work in our in agriculture, and we should also mention that these folks, they pay our taxes, they just don't have access to unemployment insurance. And so this was a way to make sure that we could support those workers for this during this time. Looked like of the e-board, there was it was a partisan, I think, vote. There was some Republicans that voted in favor. There were 5 that voted no. But otherwise, everyone else had voted yes in support of this because, number one, the Oregon Community Foundation has a real reputation too, a strong reputation. So I think it's, when you're looking at these e-board actions, is trying to find those partners, because in an e-board action compared to legislative action, there's more sideboards, there's more things that you can put in legislative action in the language. Versus e-board action, they kind of have to look towards the agencies that are already established and figure out how to point to get people connected in that way. Did I?
Thank you. Perfect. Anybody else?
Thank you, Representative Sollman. This is Sushmita. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing I'm doing okay.
Yeah, I know.
Representative Sollman, I am I'm being very honest.
That's good.
And the situation that is happening is absolutely disgusting right now. There is, and this is not about the COVID. That's the health aspect of things that people can manage by staying indoors as much as possible. That the community is doing, and they're doing a good job of it. The government has done a phenomenal job about ensuring that the messaging gets to people. Now, it's about the people that are being told to stay in or to assist in the entire function. We were supposed to be prepared for an emergency like an earthquake that would have had structural and physical damages, where resources wouldn't have been able to travel from one end of the city or the state to the other end. But in its place, we have another problem where everything is still, 65% of the people still have jobs. A huge percentage of the people still can file unemployment. Not everybody, but can file for unemployment. Small business owners, and I'm talking about micro businesses, self-employed, creators, freelancers. We have been asked from the very first day, we were being asked to take loans to pay for employees. Now, when people are there is a misconception that small business owners are rich people that have a lot of money and a lot of savings. Small businesses that were being, I remember Mayor Callaway said small businesses are the lifeblood of our society. Yes, we are pretty much at this moment being sucked dry. And when I speak for myself, I speak for a community of small business owners. And it is on our shoulders that everybody else is resting right now. And anyway, so we were being asked to take loans for employees that we pay unemployment insurance for. Our employees pay unemployment, we pay unemployment, yet we are being asked to bear the burden of taking loans to pay employees. A lot of small business owners are not the best accountants, the best financial managers, the best human resource managers. They just find people, part-time or full-time, to do the work that they can't do or they need assistance with. And yet we all of a sudden had to jump in and try to get loans for all of that. When we can't take those loans, a lot of people have maxed out credits. They have taken they've taken credit lines for their businesses and all of that. So how are they supposed to file? And all of the loan criteria were employees, employees, employees. So what the business generates or what they do was not the criteria. It was about how many employees you have. That is the worth of your business. That's unfair. There has been absolutely zero thought that these business owners have families to support, that there are children depending upon them. They have other family members depending upon them. If they do not have residential rent money, if they do not have utility money, if they do not have food money, how are they expected to pay all of that? Plus,
I'm just going to break in for a second because I just want to make sure that if you have I understand what you're saying. I think everyone appreciates what you're saying. I just want to make sure that we have time, if there are questions for the representative, that everyone has an opportunity to ask a question.
Sure. I will take just one more minute, please.
Sure.
I forgot. I'm sorry. I forgot where I was.
Sorry for the interruption.
No worries. I was anyway going to take another 30 seconds because the question followed right after that. But I'll go to the question that is important. The $10 million that is being sent for the entire state, if we go retroactive and we say that we are going to give somebody $500 per week, that's going to be almost about 8 weeks. We are looking at only 1,000 businesses getting $4,000 for 8 weeks. Basically, that's what we're looking at. So across the state, 1,000 businesses 2,500 businesses will get that much money, and that's it. Anyways, the last thing, the PPP, the program that is coming out of the state for unemployment, it depends upon an accounting method. If there is a retail store that is supposedly, after all running expenses, has $30,000 in surplus, running expenses has $30,000 in surplus. If they do a cash basis of accounting and they show that that $30,000 is the cost of goods, they basically have zero profit. And so now when they go and try and file this unemployment, they are not eligible. So whoever has designed this was not thinking when they designed these stipulations.
Thank you, Sush. Appreciate that. Do we have a question? Anybody else have a question that they would like to ask the representative? Jeremy, thank you.
A question about the timeline. I feel like what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing is not congruent. It sounds like, the executive order expires today that originally was in place, and we heard a draft of a 3-phase plan that it appears some businesses are taking as the plan and some businesses are taking as it's still a draft. And so for those of us that are on the list of still to be talked about segments of the economy, we have employees asking us when they can come back. And I spent an hour yesterday Googling when they can come back, and I'm not quite sure. What I'm seeing happen, this coffee shop's closed and that one's open. And so who's right? This mayor's got threatened with legal action, and that one is, is still playing ball. So I just don't feel like the messaging is as clear as it's thought to be. So I'm not sure where we're at. We want to do what's safe, and we can make our own decisions. And that's fine if I felt like it was my place to make that decision. But I feel like the messaging is, it's not up to me. So then when I go looking for who's the one making the decision for me, I can't figure out what decision they made or if they've made it yet.
Mm-hmm.
So where are we?
It's a great question. I would say that there's only been some very clear stipulations from the governor that has said these businesses specifically. So a stylist who has to, has all this hair, a stylist, and cannot have physical distancing. And a gym, there's too much access to equipment for people, every person who uses it, you can't then sterilize after everything. So it's been very specific as to certain businesses, certain types of things that have to close at this time. But businesses like your own haven't had the stipulation as you must close, but kind of what they have said is that you have to look at your business model in a different lens in these times. You have to figure out where you can do physical distancing, how you can provide that safety net for your employees, as well as your customers, how you can utilize your business, your sales and things during these times when you can't just open the doors and say, everybody come in. I mean, there are lots of OSHA complaints that are happening out there with businesses that are opening doors and not providing the social distancing requirements. If you go to some grocery stores, you'll see certain markings on the floor, or they'll say, we'll only take Venmo or payments. You know, there's different requirements in order to keep your customers and employees safe. But as far as any government action saying that you have to remain closed, it's just not, it's not true. You can be. So if people need to, and I'm just gonna say I need to have a guitar restored, which is what I emailed you about. If people
I thought that was spam. I'm sorry. I didn't come from your other email address, and I was like, oh, it was a personal email address. I thought somebody hacked you. I was going to ask you.
Because you think I don't have a guitar. So let's just hypothetically say that somebody has a guitar that they need to have restored.
And let's pretend they emailed and asked. Okay.
Yes. And then you could contact that business owner, and then you could exchange and then provide that service. And then, you know, it may just not look normal. It may not be that I'm going to drive it in my car and walk in with, you know, the 50 other people that are in your store at that time. So putting stipulations. I just recently heard from a business owner in a semiconductor business owner in House District 30 who said, okay, here's the things that we can still do. Can we open up? And I said, well, I believe that everything that you just said, absolutely you can, but I'm going to get a notice from the governor's office to really look this over. And, you know, he said the amount of workers some of his workers could still do some of that work from home. So they can still work from home. He needs to have more of his crew back, but he was going to provide 10-foot distancing between everybody. He's fine. My husband works for a lumber company, and they haven't closed, but they've had to put stipulations in place of how they do business. Nobody can come into their store. They have to do outside. And so you kind of have to, it's tough because we're in crisis mode. And then we're also in this opportunity to where you can kind of look at your business model and kind of transform the way you're normally doing business. But we can talk offline, but yeah.
I think that's helpful. I think one of the things that, like, for us, you know, we looked over that executive order, like, tooth and comb, you know, and it was like, well, you know, if you just look at the business model, we could stay open because there's nothing in here that specifically names us. However, it also says that non-essential travel is prohibited. Well, you know, salesman traveling to his retail guitar store job is non-essential. So while we could stay open, we couldn't have any employees here running the place, you know, besides us doing maintenance. So that was part of it that seemed a little unclear, is not, you know, non-essential travel we felt applied to our employees. And
yeah, still, as long as you have work for them to do and you can do this in a physical distance, safe manner, then you can have them come back to work and they can work. Like I said, that guitar sale may look a little different than it did 3 months ago. But I think that there's definitely opportunity to kind of do that out of the box thinking of. Is
there one place to go for some of those guidelines too? Like whether it's got to be, you know, masks and gloves or shields, or, you know, like what has to happen?
I think that, well, we don't have a direct order from the governor saying masks everywhere. Some businesses are taking it upon themselves, like New Seasons. They're not allowing people to come in unless you have a mask on, because their employees have been wearing a mask. And that's really for your protection.
Right.
And so I think that you can put certain things in practices in place that kind of say, you know, like say, you cannot physically, now I've been to places like when I went and shopped at the La Provence bakery, I couldn't, you know, I had to say a certain distance. I had to take the stuff that I wanted from the top of the counter and I had to hold it. It wasn't exchanged between us. And then I did a debit card. So I think that there's just ways, like I'm saying, is that our regular normal way of business might look a little different now and going on a little bit because there is concern about safety, but we definitely can restore some guitars.
We will do that. Yeah. Thank you. That helps a lot. That is exactly what I was hoping to hear. So thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, Deanna, that was more than one question. I'll mute now.
That's all right. So we do have a question in the chat from, who is it from? From Kipperlin. So if a business owner didn't put themselves on payroll, are they void of receiving any help?
No, I do not believe so, but I do know that I remember in talking to Janelle Bynum, who is a representative from the Happy Valley area, and her husband are business owners. And I remember her saying, justify your pay and get a paycheck. You should be paying yourself through your company. So I think that that's where, which by the way, the PUA funds, the self-employed gig workers, is open. So, I mean, everybody might like mass leave right now to go and do that, but you can go on there and file and be able to look at that for self-employment. But I do not believe this makes you void of receiving any help. I do know that when they were looking at federal help coming in, and they were talking about a lot of small businesses, 500 or below. Well, when you drive down the little street here of Varenco or North Plains, you're not talking about 500 people. You know, you're talking about Bertoni at Abbey Winery and how many folks that he has there. You're talking about, you know, even Jimmy, who owns the McDonald's in North Plains. He doesn't have 500 people that work for him there. So, or Hyundai, and, you know, Hyundai at iSpark, you know, what she's working with. So I think that this next wave of PPP really does look at making sure that how we can support those smaller businesses. And then this funding that we're working on with the Business Oregon, which make sure you check out their website. Nicole has put a lot of great resources on the side here. Oh, I see that Erin has put a great webinar, some information from the Oregon Community Foundation. Yeah, so she's put some great resources on there as well.
So we're just about 6 minutes left. I just wanted to make sure that anybody who hasn't had a chance to answer a question could do that. Is there anybody that hasn't asked a question?
I've got a quick question. It's kind of non-business related. It's more education related.
Okay.
And personal to me, I have a senior in high school, or a graduate now, looking to go to Oregon State next year. Is there anywhere we can look to see what planning is being done for possible opening of colleges next year, or if it's all going to be virtual again, or if, I know that there's no way to really know for sure what's going to happen, but maybe somewhere we can look to follow what planning is taking place?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel for you having a senior. One of my I have 3 high school interns, and Ryan Smith, he is a senior at Glencoe High School. He actually just wrote kind of a little story in my newsletter from yesterday about his perspective as a senior going through all of this. And yeah, this is not only frustrating for K-12 parents, but also I think picking up more of that language right now because of people looking forward at what fall looks like. They're kind of trying to figure out where and how they should invest dollars too. Because if you're going to invest in a certain college, you want to know what kind of program they're going to have in place. I think the higher education, the HEC, is a really good resource to take a look. Going to the college website themselves, talking with the admissions folks, I think is part of this conversation. Making sure, the HEC oversees, that's that agency that oversees higher education in Oregon. They'll kind of have an overarching part of information, but I say also directly going to those colleges and finding out what their plan is, because I know that I've heard it. Mark Watson, who's on my team, he's on the Hillsboro School Board, and I know that people are also asking him and the district, are we going to be back to normal in the fall? And that's the hard thing about this. That's just the really difficult thing about this disease, is I try to tell my mother-in-law, it's hard. You have to treat everybody like they have it, because it's not like the chicken pox that you can see the red marks. It's scary. And so we're going to listen to scientists. We're going to make sure that we're really super careful. That's why even when we're talking about the reopening plan, which if you can participate tonight, I think it'd be great information for you to hear. But that's why it's like, we can't just open the doors and throw back the shutters and say, please come, everyone. Because we have to be really thoughtful and methodical and careful about this, because otherwise we'll see a surge come to us that might be worse than what we had before. And I think that Oregon's direction from the governor has been really strong in really averting what we saw from our neighbors to the north and the south, and really saved lives. And it saved impact to our healthcare system, which, hats off to our healthcare providers, the amazing work that they are doing in putting their own self at risk in treating folks and taking care of folks. But those are things that we have to consider when we're talking about that reopen plan. But we need to make sure that the governor is also hearing from her economic advisory committees from different angles of businesses to say what it looks like for them. They're talking about reopening region by region, possibly, which kind of makes me a little bit nervous, because I want to make sure, like in our business of competitiveness, I don't want to give a certain region more competitive advantage than others. So I really want to hope that some of that's entering into the conversation is what individually as a certain type of business can you do to put protections in place to protect your customers. And so I went on from your question, Brad, and went all the way around the bases again. So that's how I roll. Sorry.
We do have a question about signing up for the town hall tonight. Is there an email person? Can we get it, the link?
I think Nicole had put my, we could, I think maybe we could put Linda's email on there, and we could send Linda an email. I just don't know how many spots, because my Zoom account is like 100, and that's where you got. So I don't know how many spots are going to be. Oh, there, see, Lynn, it's like there she is with the information. It is, I don't know how many spots are, but it is going to be recorded. So make sure to send folks the link. We could send it to you, Deanna, too, and feel free.
Absolutely. Thank you. I think I just have one final comment. In terms of a special session where you can really get at a lot more dollars than $10 million for small business support, I think that if that's in June, you're a month too late. I think we're going to see small businesses not be able to make it through May. And I think you're also going to have a lot of frustrated people that are going to be competing for $10 million.
Yeah.
And so I think any indication of the amount of money that the legislature might be looking at in terms of small business support, but also timing. And I understand, the wanting to see the revenue forecast and the federal resources. Our small businesses don't really care about any of that. what they really care about is the fact that if they could get a $2,000 grant, they could help pay some of their rent for May. And that would be helpful. And I mean, I just got an email from one of our really we're small businesses in downtown Hillsboro that they don't believe they're going to make it till the end of May. So anything you can do to move that conversation forward as quick as possible. I mean, I think that we're now so caught up in the urgency, it no longer seems urgent, and it is still, and every day counts. So Representative Sollman, thank you for joining us here today. You've always been such a strong proponent and supporter for small business. We truly appreciate it. Doors always open. You always listen, always ask our opinion. So thank you.
Yeah, please. And again, it's really important that as I'm working with these other 20 members of this bipartisan group, Oregon Works group, it's really important that you share and email me the you know, ideas, the frustrations, the what's worked, what hasn't, because I take that back to the hive, right? And then we can brainstorm about it and figure out where we can connect people to get them the help that they need. And it's really important that we all have our lens of experience and our areas that we are strong at, and I can't know everything, we can't know everything, but it's really important that I take your perspective back to that group and can, you know, possibly get folks the help that they need sooner than later.
I would invite you right now. We have a survey on the street, and then Friday we're doing our virtual business walk online from 10 to 11, where we'll reveal the results of that survey. And I think it was out for a couple of hours. We already had 26 respondents. We're currently getting it translated so we can have more diversity in the voices. But I think that'll be information that you can use in terms of where are we at right at this minute.
It's fantastic. I know I spoke to a colleague of mine, Rachel Prusak, that was talking about this, that she was getting some information from her local chamber from that survey. So thank you for putting that out there.
You bet. Mayor, did you have a last comment? I saw your hand up.
That was my attempt to do the applaud for everybody. I guess it was a one-hand applause. Sorry.
It was almost like this, right? All right. Thank you all very much. Have a great rest of your day. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you very much for participating.